Looks like it's cold there.
Yeah.
Welcome to paraglidingtalk.com. I'm your host, Robert Michiels. You are in the greatest place on the interwebs tonight. Welcome to paraglidingtalk.com. Yay. I got some sound effects going, so we'll play with those tonight. Glad that you're here. If you haven't subscribed yet, you need to subscribe. If you haven't jumped on board and hit the bell, you're only partway through the subscription. Okay. Hit the bell as well. Follow us on paraglidingtalk.com. And if you're interested in getting involved in some contests and winning free stuff, watch the show, involve yourself in the chat. Your name's going on the spinny wheel thing. And if you get your name picked on the spinny wheel thing, you're going to win something every show. And I got the sick voice, so it sounds like the radio voice.
Fantastic.
This show is brought to you by a few different people. Nebraska PPG. They have a school there in Nebraska. You need to jump on board with them. I was just hearing myself in the background. That's why. That's playing in the background. Fantastic.
I Fly Indiana. No way. That's cool.
I Fly Indiana. Yes, that's Kevin and his group. I Fly Indiana. So cool. They have a school. That's one of our sponsors as well. Go check out iflyindiana.com. Show's brought to you by Nebraska PPG, Josh Bowden. Go check out his school. There's a website. There's a link in the description. Go check that out. Also, the group there in Michigan, the place where I was born, Michigan. Go check out their website, flymyppg.com, flymyppg.com. And then the show's also brought to you by paraorangeproducts.com. Larry is with us tonight. He runs Para Orange Products. If you're interested in getting some stuff, maybe some stuff to protect your gear, or if you're looking to buy some gear, you can get it through Larry and Chris, who he calls the bag lady. You can get whatever you need from paraorangeproducts.com. The show is also brought to you by PPG Smoke. We do have a special announcement about PPG Smoke tonight. The giveaway, we're going to do one of the giveaways. If you don't know about Ryan Roberts, he gave away $10,000 worth of stuff. Well, then on Thanksgiving, he gave away 31 chase cams. Anybody who was watching, there was 31 people watching, and he gave away. So go check out his website, ppgsmoke.com. And he's got some announcements just recently, and there's a link in the description for it. He developed some strobe system, 3 strobe lights for paramotoring and free flight paragliding. Pretty neat. You could just drop the little deals in the wings and put one on your helmet, and then you can fly for half an hour after dark. We'll talk a little bit about that later. Show's brought to you by Tri-State Skywalkers. If you're in the Indiana, Kentucky, or Ohio area, you can reach out to Brandon McCloud on Facebook. Show's also brought to you by paramotorprops.com. By the way, thanks for the shirt, guys. Appreciate you. One Up Paragliding. That's the main website. But if you check out paramotorprops.com, you can get a really cheap, not cheaply made, but discounted price on props. And we all need props, don't we? Well, I don't, because I don't have a paramotor. I have mountains. Yeah. Mountains are my motors. Welcome. Nik Hawks is with us tonight, former Navy SEAL, an American warrior. He's also the owner of Paleo Treats. Go check out paleotreats.com. If you don't know what that is, you need some of that in your life. Nik, welcome. Thank you for coming on the show. Also, Sean's with us moderating. Craig Taylor's in the house, and Larry from paraorangeproducts.com. I'm stoked about this show, and I'm really impressed with what you pulled together with our weather station, and so glad that that I didn't have to force you to come on the show.
Yeah, it was a mutual consent. That's how I like it.
So I want to start the show off talking about the importance of weather stations. Now, everyone here appreciates the weather stations, whether they like it or not. When you go to check your weather, you are checking a conglomerate of all kinds of information that you're getting from these little data stations. That's what we're going to talk a little bit about tonight. We're going to talk about what it takes to install one. Nik has some show and tell. Is that right?
I think
Show
you
it
got
to-
the pictures. I'm not technologically advanced in that manner, but
Oh gosh.
yeah,
Yes, we do have some pictures.
I'm pretty sure you can put something together.
I'm going to pull it together right now, as a matter of fact.
Cool. Super cool.
So take us through the importance, or why do we need these weather stations?
Sure. So paragliders, I'm assuming PPGs as well, need to look at the weather and see what's going on, see if the conditions are right for us, see if it's too light, too strong, where it's coming from, what it might look like up high, down low, all that stuff. And the weather stations give us that info. So they give us the basic information about the sky. In this particular case, we had some weather stations around the site that we fly. It's one of the most flown sites in San Diego, but we didn't have a weather station specifically kind of for it. And we found out actually once we put this weather station in that there's also some differences between what happens where the station is and where the site is, but that's part of learning. But now it's got its own little cool station.
My favorite place to fly, by the way, Lawson.
Nobody could notice.
Nobody could notice that.
Yeah.
Every video.
Yeah.
I'm
Awesome
looking
is blown
on
out thanks to Robert Michiels.
I'm looking at the San Diego Hang Gliding Paragliding Association website, trying to find a link to the YouTube channel, and you didn't make it very easy to find. It's buried in there. But while I'm looking for that, maybe you can send me a link.
See if I can dig something up.
Dig something up there. So what I thought was fascinating about this weather station is, one, it's in a place where we didn't obviously have one before, but the fact that there was a bunch of stuff involved to get there. The hike for this particular hike is 11 miles round trip, 11 and a half or something like that.
Something like
right?
that, yeah.
So it's at least 5.25 miles in, up, down, left, right, switchbacks, all kinds of, and I've only done a small portion of it, but a helicopter was involved in bringing materials.
We did have a helo in, yeah.
There was at least 5 or 6 people that I remember being involved, right? Or was it 4, 5?
Let's see. We had Bill Kimball help pick the site, and then Jeff Brown put together the station and kind of was the data geek and figuring all that stuff out. So that's 2. We had Greg Hunter put together the actual mast itself. So that's 3. And then we had the Carnesis twins 4, 5 helped bike in a bunch of that stuff. So it was a cool little crew. And then had a bunch of folks on Telegram kind of sitting back on the computer and making sure that I didn't screw things up too badly.
Nerds.
I don't know about nerds, but
I was one of the nerds. That's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
I was helping.
Sure.
I was there for moral support.
You did a fantastic job.
Actually, I was just trolling the whole time. Sorry about that. So anyways,
that's kind of what you do.
We actually, that weather station went up pretty much without a hitch. I was worried a couple different times that there was going to be weather affecting what was going to happen. You got it done before the rain. There was some cool pictures that came up that I'm scrambling here to try to find the pictures because it would make the story much more fun.
I just texted over the SDHGPA site. So I think if you trying to cough and choke yourself, I think it's SDHGPA, whatever the channel thing is. So it's like youtube.c/c/magic. And then on this, I'll send you the site as well, because it's buried in there a little bit.
Wow, that is weird. It does not want to show up.
No. Okay.
Once you get some traction, this will pop right up on the top. Okay.
We'll make it work.
Yes, here we go. So I was worried about making this show because talking about weather stations is pretty boring stuff, but I am just infatuated with this thing. And I want to just show you something that I was able to do. If you have an iPhone, and this is for all different kinds of websites. Let me take this backdrop off real quick. Okay, here we go.
Hey, there you are.
So
I know that place.
What I've got here, Holify is the web host. Did you say?
Hopefully makes the stations. They put everything together and they make it so that it works, that you get a box of components that you can plug into each other and they all
network.
Yeah, deliver this stream of data. So for this one, we got a bunch of different sensors. Normally a weather station that we get, in the past, the whole Foys have had just wind speed and direction, and I think temperature. And for this one, we partnered with a couple local agencies and organizations and got a bunch of extra sensors so we could figure out what else is going on up on that spot.
So there's a way that you can actually take just a general website, and I did this with my soaring predictor website,
Mhm.
and I made a link for the whole Phi
Mhm.
LCAP weather station. So that's how fast I can open up the weather station, right?
That's
And
pretty
now I'm
cool.
looking at instant details about the weather station. Right now, it's 11 miles an hour straight north. And these are, um, and I don't want to say life and death, but can be life and death information that you need when you're flying at Blossom. So I wanted to know, and because I can see it out my back window, I want to know what's going on all the time. I don't want a chance going across if the wind is north, because if you try to go and scratch on the lee side of El Cap, you're going to find yourself in rotor and get your butt handed to you. And so there's been a couple times that I've gone to fly since we've installed this, and I said, "Whoa, look, check it out! It's straight up the face. It's south," where it was blowing maybe just west when we were at the launch site. And so,
Yep.
having that said, what is it that we're looking for right now in details? What is it that we're fascinated with? I know what I'm fascinated with. What is it that you're taking away uh, superficially just in the beginning stages of having this installed?
Sure. So I guess the start with the reason that we picked this spot to put a weather station on is El Cap is this kind of C-shaped, basically bowl. The wind comes out of the west and rises up the bowl. On the back side of that bowl is we can have north winds come over that thing and spill over that and drop down and create a bunch of turbulence coming down the face. That's not often that it happens, but it does happen. And when that happens, it can be pretty dangerous. So the big reason for putting a station over at the cap was to tell us when there were light north winds, when it wasn't obvious just from looking at the sky, that you'd find over there. So to save pilots from going across and then getting themselves in a spot of trouble, trying to scratch up the face, like you were saying, and hitting some pretty turbulent air spilling over the top. So that was kind of the one of the reasons we picked that place to put a station. The other one was we don't own the land at Blossom. The landowner has been super cool about basically not prosecuting us for trespassing, but we don't own the land, so we can't put a weather station up there. And the nearest piece of land that we could put a station on that was going to be useful, that sticks way up into the airflow, I think it's right about 3,000 feet, might be a little bit higher, was over at the cap.
We have a couple weather stations that are nearby. Um, one that's by the school, that's kind of low,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, and it gives kind of good predictions for what's happening, but most of the time it's a little bit low. The it will say 6 and it's actually blown 12,
Yep.
um, type of thing. Are we working at all with those other stations to kind of find a common source?
Like one of the geeky things that a couple of folks in the club are doing. I mean, one of the really cool things about the San Diego club is it's big. We got 250 members, so there's a lot of people to pull from, a lot of people who have different expertises. And because it's San Diego and because it's paragliders, it's a bunch of engineers. And so we got a couple folks in the club who are kind of applying their geek superpowers to seeing how we put together what's going on at the cap station, what's going on at BVSD, which is the other local station, and then seeing if we can kind of pull some other data together and say when Blossom is going to be flyable, when it's going to be good, when it's not going to be good, and kind of look, especially in the past, and see how many people flew there on what day, and use that as a predictor of how good or how bad that site might have been. Because Blossom is one of the most consistent sites in America, so it does get one of the most consistent mountain sites in America. So it's a lot of pilots flying it. A lot of people want to know, is it going to be good? Is it going to be worth the 30 or 40-minute drive out there?
What's interesting to me is the microclimate there. I made a post the other day and it was super hazy and stable,
Mm-hmm.
and yet I still was able to have a really fun flight. Went till cap, came back, flew around for longer than I really was expecting, and
Yep.
had a really good night. I made the statement that Blossom doesn't care what your weatherman says. Uh, it's got its own little microclimate because the valley kind of pushes everything through, and then, like you said, makes its way up. Now, by the way, this is all kind of, for a paramotor guy, you just say, well, I don't really care. But I do want to say, you can benefit from having a weather station. If you've got your own property, or you've got a place where you fly often, it's worth getting a weather station, not just because you'll have instant access for yourself or for your flying club, but also that you help out the weather community in general. And maybe talk about that networking, and how much does it cost to get into one of these devices?
So the weather station that we got is from Holfoy. There's probably going to be a link somewhere on there. It's holfuy.com. It's I want to say it's out of Hungary, and Holfoy means where the wind blows. It's a kind of made up word from, I think, Hungarian. And those things, God, I want to say they're, I don't know, around 900 to get into one of those. And that's basically like, I don't know, pretty close to a full-on pro meteorologist station. There's actually a meteorologist who lives right down the street from me, and that's his job, is putting in those weather stations. And the ones that he puts in are maybe a little bit pricier, maybe around 1,200, 1,500. This particular station, we added a couple extra sensors to it, like I was saying. So we got the barometric, got the pressure, we got humidity, we got insolation, so how much sun is hitting the ground, and all those things added a couple hundred extra bucks to it. I think it came up somewhere around 1,200, 1,300 bucks for us to have this station up there. The cool thing with humidity and pressure is you can estimate cloud base. So one of the things really the whole weather station thing is interesting because all of a sudden you have a brand new data point that is objective. Like, it's not going to change over time. It's not going to say that it thinks it's hot one day and it doesn't think it's hot the other day because it's having a hot flash or it's having a fever. It's a weather station. So you've got this objective data point. And then you've got a whole new kind of stream of sets of data to try and understand. And so we've been kind of laughing and saying like, oh, it looks like cloud base is at 8,000 or 9,000 feet today, or 10,000 feet, which at that site at Blossom, I mean, I'm sure someone's gotten to 8,000 or 10,000 feet, 1 or 2 days, but certainly I can't remember any time it's happened. When I've flown there, most of the time we're getting up to 3,000, 4,000, maybe 5,000, 6,000 be a pretty incredible day. And then taking off from there. Oh, look at that handsome devil. So, yep, this was the day that it went up. I just put that thing up, and as I was putting up, the weather was coming in. And so it was just super, super windy, and you could look down the valley and see these rain cells coming up and the rain dropping out of it. And I knew it was coming and felt like I wanted to get that thing up and then get out of there. I had some work stuff to do later that day, but the sky was pretty incredible. It was a pretty rad day to put the weather station up.
Let's see here. I should be able to just keep these rolling here.
Cool.
Yeah. So this is the mast. By the way, I have your stencils, all of your stencils. Cool. We need to put those up there. Yep. Let's see if this will just keep rolling and play all the videos I want. Yes.
Cool. Yeah. So this is putting it up. This is the kind of hinge plate that Greg Hunter had welded up for us to make it really easy to do exactly that. That took 3 separate days of going out to that site and putting that thing in there. And then this is from a video that I think the Carnese's brothers shot on their mountain bikes. Those guys are ballers on the mountain bikes, but they biked out there. Me and Bill and Jeff Brown hiked in. Super beautiful day, super beautiful morning. Got there really early, kind of snuck past I think actually the gate was open that day. And we took the day to hike in all of the weather station itself. So I'd already brought the mast in via helicopter. And that day we brought in all the different components of the weather station, put it all together, and put it up.
What were some of the setbacks that you dealt with putting this up, and what advice do you have for those that are wanting to get a weather station at their local flying spot?
Sure. So I'll talk through a little bit of kind of what's going on here. Is that one of the setbacks we had was, how do we fix it to the rock? So what we're looking at right there is El Cap, and then you're now looking across the valley to Blossom, and now looking out west to the ocean. We didn't know how we were going to fasten that pole to the ground. If you look up online and you're looking at weather stations, they say they want it 30 feet in the air. That just wasn't reasonable for us to put something 30 feet tall. About the most that we could manage that we felt was manageable for us was a 12-foot pole and then a 4-foot lightning rod, so 16-foot total. But to get that to stay in the ground when it was blowing 50 or 60, which I think it's definitely blown over 50 since we put it in.
Oh, really?
Yep. Yeah, we had to drill some bolt holes in. So it's super cool. Bill Kimball was the guy that you just saw there. He spent part of his career putting in big antennas, so he had some really good advice. And then Jeff Brown also had some super good advice. One of the first setbacks was I didn't realize how long it was going to take for the bolt adhesive to set up and the concrete to set up. And I think the very first one was we didn't realize how much energy it was going to take to drill all 4 of those holes into the rock. And so I only brought enough batteries to drill like 3 1/4 holes. So that first day we went out there, that's when I got the ride in on the helicopter. So the helo brought in the mast. There's going to be some video of that later on. They brought it in under a long line. So the helicopter comes in, it's got this long line under it in a big steel box. And sorry, in that box was a bunch of different stuff that we used to put up the weather station. And also that one of the other agencies that let us put this up on their land, there it is, the San Diego River Park Foundation. That's who owns the land. They had brought in a bunch of stuff as well. They brought in a job box that they could store stuff in. These are all just short clips of the helo coming in. This is corporate helicopters out of San Diego. So one of the stories behind this that was kind of cool is how do you pay for something like this? And this is the mast in the garage. The story behind it is that a few years back, San Diego Gas and Electric, and I'm sure Pacific Gas and Electric, a couple big power companies wanted to bring power into San Diego. And rather than installing solar panels on everyone's house, they wanted to bring power lines in and cross some of the really wild and beautiful landscape that we have in San Diego. So the environmentalists fought that pretty hard. They didn't want huge gangly power lines coming through, but they lost. What they did win, though, was an agreement that SDG&E would pay to maintain and preserve other wild and beautiful lands that the power lines had basically cut through and impacted. And one of those pieces of property was basically all of El Capitan. And so San Diego River Park Foundation got to manage that and got to kind of take care of that piece of land. And as part of that maintenance that they got to do, San Diego Gas and Electric provides, I think, an annual sum for them to fly stuff in and out by helicopter. So they do research out there. They're protecting some endangered, I don't know if it's endangered species, but protected plants out there, protected animals. There's a golden eagle nest out there.
Yeah.
There's mountain lions on that land. There's a lot of really cool stuff that San Diego River Park Foundation is protecting.
I've flown with those eagles.
Yeah, they're pretty awesome. I mean, most of us have. That's kind of one of the beautiful draws of that site.
So you tapped into those resources to use a helicopter, which is unbelievable. And I wonder who even knew about that. That's amazing.
Yeah, that kind of came up early on, is that when I'd seen that piece of land was owned by the River Park Foundation, which I think you can find at, I think it's River Park, maybe San Diego Riverpark.com. When I found out it was owned by them, I contacted them and said, hey, would you guys be open to the local paragliding and hang gliding club putting a weather station up on your land? We'll provide the station. This is why we want to do it. We think this can benefit you guys by allowing you guys access to this data stream as well. And if you're cool with it and want to contribute more than just the land, if you want to put a couple $100 in the pot, we'll get some extra sensors so that you get even more data out there. We're going to go to the work of putting it up. We might as well extract as much data as we can out of this kind of single spot. And they said yes to all of it. And then they said, hey, we actually have access to a helicopter that flies in once or twice a year. And if you want to bring in some of your heavy stuff on that, because we thought that initially we'd be building a really big foundation of concrete. It was before we realized we could anchor it into the rock. They offered up kind of a space on the heli. So I said yes.
Yeah. What maintenance, if any, and if people are thinking about putting a weather station, is this something they can put like on the top of their house and become
I think so,
like
yeah.
another data point?
Yeah, I was looking at weather stations as this one went up because I was just psyched on it. I mean, it's super cool to have that piece of that stream of data coming through. And there's all kinds of mounts. There's all kinds of stuff online about how to put this up, whether you put it on your house or you've got a big open space, which is kind of the best. You want it away from trees or other windbreaks so that you get a nice clean reading on the wind. But you can put it up on attach it to a wall, stick it in the ground, attach it to your house, but just know it's got to withstand whatever the strongest winds that come around. And you want to make sure it's not going to rip a hole out of your house when it gets pulled off, if it gets pulled off.
What do you you obviously know about what's going to take to maintenance. And I'm interested because is there batteries that we're going to have to change out eventually? Is there things that we're going to have to clean, or sensors that we're going to have to, inspect to make sure that they're reading properly? Anything like that?
Yeah, I think we can expect to do at least kind of one maintenance run a year out there, if not a few more. And so we're not really sure what's going to happen. One of the things that Jeff was wondering about was like, hey, I wonder if that insolation sensor, the sensor that measures the amount of sun that falls in that ground, is going to get dusty and start to
Change in
misreport that.
value.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see. And a lot of this stuff is just we're learning about it. Like, I'm not a professional weatherman by any stretch of the imagination. I think any of the local San Diego pilots who kind of see me talking about weather, like, oh, what's that guy doing on there? But mostly it was just carrying the weather station out there was my part of it. But just thinking about like, what else are we going to have to do? And then what does that station tell us that we didn't expect? And one of the things was that where we put it, we thought, because it stuck up into the airflow so much, is up at 3,300 to 3,000 feet, that we would get this really clean read on the wind coming up the valley. And it turns out that the microclimate of El Cap itself, the cliff part, is so strong that as those cliffs heat up and start sucking air up them, the kind of the meso wind is going west, but the micro wind is just getting sucked up, and it looks like it's blowing out of the southeast. So it's getting sucked up that kind of inside concave piece and then blowing almost backwards to what we'd want. But I think what we've learned so far, and this is by no means definitive, is that when it's blowing southeast, it's probably pretty safe for us to fly. And the really dangerous part is if it starts blowing north or northeast. That means it's coming over the back. So in that image, from behind that weather station. And that's when it's gonna be spilling over the top and being yep. So there's
scary.
Yeah, pretty scary. There's all the different sensors on the station. I think he's pointing at the I don't think that's the insulation. I think it's barometric and temperature, and then the white box is a little rain box. There's a solar panel on there to keep that thing recharged. So hopefully we never have to replace the battery, but it's made by humans, so sooner or later it's going to wear out and we'll have to fix it. And then kind of off to the bottom left, that big black bar, that's what the wind sensor sits on. That's just a Davis wind sensor. So those are pretty common.
Question, Nick, how do you gather the data? How do you obtain the data that comes in from these sensors?
Cool. That comes in via a cell. So you can set it up if it's by your house, you can set it up on Wi-Fi. But for these ones, the cool thing they did is you just put a little SIM card in there and buy a cell phone plan. I think you find it, Robert. And it's like, it's either $15 a month or $15 a year. It's something super, super cheap is what it costs us. So just finding like the cheapest data plan possible and then putting that thing up.
Updates every 2 minutes. That's amazing. It's cooking right now. 15-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah.
Straight north.
So, I mean, one of the things with this one is we can't look back that far. I think you can look back 5 days. And there's a El Cap weather station article, there's a link to that at the bottom. I don't know if you've hit that one yet, Robert. For info, see the El Cap weather station article. That thing's got all the pictures and video on it.
Oh, nice.
Yep. So that was one of the views from the top. You can see the inversion. That's a morning shot. I don't know if that was the morning that we went up there or another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was your first trip up there.
The first one. Yeah.
Yeah. That was such an amazing morning.
So they were just kind of looking at, yeah, go ahead.
I've got a question, a great question. And I thought of this in when I was driving. Coordinates. This doesn't have much to do with the weather station other than I remember them asking, okay, where are we putting this thing? And everybody was ready to go and hike. And we didn't really know exactly where the line was. And then we figured out where we thought we were going to put it. And then some coordinates were sent off. And I thought it is very important. And if you don't get anything else from this show tonight, you should be able to do this. How can you send someone your coordinates if there's an emergency, or if all you can do is text numbers and send your location? How can you do that? And I hope that you can walk us through that, Nick, and help some people.
Yep. So, I mean, the easiest way is just technology is dropping a pin. I think that's about as easy as it gets. And that's what I did when I was up there and just making sure right before I started drilling holes that went in. Did we talk about the 3 words thing?
I don't think so.
So there's a program. If you look up like coordinates and 3 words, you'll find this system where I think it's any 10 meters square on the planet has its own unique set of 3 words that go to that 10-meter square. And so it's a pretty cool way of figuring out, because you and I don't remember, 32.17629 degrees north and 117 degrees west. You can say like, oh, blossoms at, I want to say it's something like snakes hissing blows, or some like 3, weird word combination. But that's an easy way to do it if you got that program.
And what is that? It's called 3 words?
It might be called these 3 words, might be called something else. I'm not totally sure on it.
Okay, I'll get back to you on that. That's interesting. So let's paint a scenario. You landed somewhere where you don't have cell service.
Yep.
But you do have a satellite device that you can send a message. By the way, this is something I think that every single person should have. If you don't have, I encourage you to get one. I use the Garmin InReach Mini, and the subscription is $15. There's a cheaper subscription, $15 a month. The unit itself is like $350, completely worth it, in my opinion. The hope is that you will never have to use it, but if you do need it, it may save your life. And it has a nice little SOS button on there. I know that instantly will send, it'll send exactly what your coordinates are for service rescue. And
I think Gavin's got a whole article on how all that works too, because I think it's
there's so many different variables.
Cool.
I just got your message and it disappeared.
I think it's what3words.com is the name of that thing. It's 3 is the number 3, not spelled out.
Got it. I'm opening it right now.
Cool.
We're at the half an hour mark. We're going to give something away.
Oh, do I get it?
Do you want something?
No, I'm good.
Please tell me.
Mm-hmm.
Anything for Nick. Let me, what are we giving away tonight, by the way? T-shirt?
That's a good question. What are we
Sounds
giving
like a
away,
T-shirt
Rob?
to me.
Robert?
We're giving away a Paragliding Talk T-shirt.
There you go. I was gonna say, with your voice, what are you gonna tell these people here? Here we go. These are all the people that were in the chat that have been chatting.
Spinning the wheel.
You ready to spin? Here we go. Oh.
That's pretty rad.
Sandor
Randesky. Sandor,
I've
congratulations.
I've heard it pronounced Shandor, but I read it Sandor. So
Sandor, yes. Congratulations, Sandor. You were the winner. Chicken dinner. You came up tonight on a T-shirt. Please tell me what size T-shirt you wear. And if you can message me with your address or a place where I can send it to you, you are the winner, chicken dinner. He said yes in the chat. Thank you for watching paraglidingtalk.com. Man, I was down in the dumps with the sickness on Saturday and then Sunday and then Monday, and I'm still sick. What day is it today?
Thursday. I'm pretty sure.
Thursday night, paragliding talk. But my voice has this girth to it, so I think I need to record some commercials before this goes away.
You got some gravel in there?
Yeah. Paraglidingtalk.com.
See, that would have been a good one right there for radio or something.
Yep.
I'm just saying.
Chat's
just keep getting
crazy.
Sick.
Yeah, just keep getting sick, man. That's all you got to do.
Just pass.
Just puke your guts up before the show every day, and then you can, do your commercials bit and record it. So that way, every show, it's like you've been sick, but you're really not.
Nik Hawks, would you put a Paragliding Talk logo on your wing if I gave you one?
Maybe.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to discuss this.
What about a Paleo Treats?
I got your stuff in my truck.
Really? What do you
on the world famous Paleo Treats Toyota Tacoma that drives around on the back.
Oh yeah, no, I know that.
Yeah.
I know that.
Pimp
But did you see Sean's wing here in the backdrop?
Oh, that's your wing? Nice.
That's legit.
That's not just Photoshop.
No,
it's real.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Real. Yeah, Craig Taylor, he set me up, man. It's awesome.
Craig Taylor makes them. He can make a Paleo Treats. If you want to sponsor the show with Paleo Treats, I'll put one on my wing.
All right, we'll talk.
We were talking about all this email stuff and promoting the show. By the way, Nik Hawks has his own podcast. Can you drop them a link for that or tell them where they can find you at?
Sure. Easiest way is just nikhawks.com, nikhawks.com. And that'll take you to the Patreon page, and then you'll be able to find anything you want. You can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, Downcast, wherever you get your podcasts. It's on all those. I'm not super active on it. Just when I find people I like or I want to share their story, it goes on there. So
yeah, he's got some cool stuff on there. And it's not just paragliding or paramotoring or anything like that.
There's only one or two paragliding ones on there. Everything else, the last one was a neurochemist, and she got one of her things was she spent a year or two in the morgue in was it Philadelphia, like just dissecting people's brains and figuring out what they died of and how their brains worked. Pretty rad.
Really?
Yeah. It's like a bunch of drug overdose stuff. So she's figuring like, oh, this guy OD'd on meth, and this guy was cocaine, and that guy was this, and this is what happened in this murder. So it's pretty cool.
Wow. I'll have to go check that one out. That was the last one?
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, I think that was Ann's one.
I was interested on one that you did about shocking your brain.
Yeah, that's right. I talked to Amy. The fuck is her last name? She's gonna kill me if she hears that. That's right. You guys bill for foul language.
I gotta call that one out. I'm sorry, Nick.
Hey, do what you gotta do. I forgot the rules.
I bit my tongue and I was like, oh
no, do it. What do I do? I owe something? Do I just gotta take my shirt off, pants off? What's the deal here?
$10.
It made me pucker a little bit. Like,
okay. You can pay in paleo treats. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Yeah, she was a former DARPA manager. So DARPA is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. They came up with the internet. They came up with a bunch of rad stuff, the stealth bomber, among other things. And so one of the things they're super interested in is human performance. And she had worked on this thing, TDCS, which is TCDS, transcranial direct stimulation. So you're putting these electrodes on your head and you're stimulating different parts of your brain. And that basically adds energy to your brain so you can think faster. That's not a very scientific way. And I'm sure she might give me a pointer on how to say that better, but that's how I thought of it as a layman. And so what I found for some of the placements before I was flying, and this is much more helpful early on, was that when I used it before flying, it was as if, it's a weird way to describe it, but it's as if like my brain or my mind expanded to like a garage sized room, and I could think all these different thoughts at the same time and hold them in my brain and kind of move them around so that, you know, when you're learning how to fly, you've got a lot of stuff going on and it can seem like you're just getting overwhelmed with information. And this one, I think they call it a montage, like how you put these things in your head, whether you put it on the side or the back or some different quadrant. One of those worked really, really well for me for kind of expanding that mind space. So
we had something
really
like
anything
that.
to do with weather station, but
We had something like that in the 70s. We called it angel dust, I think it was.
yeah. It's a little safer, this stuff.
Don't try that at home, kids.
No, you totally should. I told Lee when I first put it on, I'm like, hey, I'm going to put this thing on. If you see me twitching, just knock this thing off.
I can just see you laying on the ground.
She thought that was the funniest thing, but it's fine. I used to use it for writing in the morning. It's just like open up your creative abilities.
Yeah, I remember
focusing.
when we were both pretty new at paragliding when you were wearing that. And I was like, man, I want to try that.
Yeah.
But I never had the guts to ask you to let me wear it.
Yeah, I got it. It's right here in the desk drawer.
I didn't want to take it from you because you were always wearing it.
Yeah. Well,
And I was
next time.
like, dang it. He's trying to one up me. He's always trying to be better than me.
Always trying to be better than myself. That's all.
All right. So that if you have questions, by the way, in the comments and moderators, if you caught anything that I missed, I haven't been really paying very close attention to the chat, but if you're in the chat and you're interested about what we're talking about, weather stations or taking information, we have some people that are actually kind of weather tech people that are taking some of this information and mashing it into a program so that, or I don't know if it's a program or if they're just data harvesting.
They're making some kind of data magic with it. So it's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a cool thing that we did with the club was say to these folks like, hey, I know this is well within your wheelhouse of expertise. Can you put something together that helps make our understanding of weather a little more accurate? And so they're just kind of kicking it around right now and figuring out where they're going to pull the weather data sources from and how far back they go. And then what does that stuff mean? There's already a ton of resources out there. A bunch of them are on the SDHGPA weather page, you know, to get the KK7, I think it is, the thermal map thing, which is super cool. Some guy updates that once a year, and you can find where people are finding thermals around the world. So there's some super cool stuff out there, and we're always just looking like, how do we give back to the sport? How do we make it better? How do we use our expertise to advance our knowledge?
Paul Askins says, Nick, put up more YouTube videos. I like that.
I'm not much of a YouTuber. I got to get, if only I knew someone who knew anything about YouTube, who is also a paraglider, who could help out putting up YouTube videos. Huh.
I think Mark Amison made a video about that. It's like he's got like 5 different very good points. They're great pointers. They've helped me, and I suck at vlogging.
Yeah. It's like what you're into and what you want to do. I don't know. Like, for some reason, making videos has never been something cool. But I think there's a ton of potential for it for any club, and that's super cool. You know, what you guys are doing, sharing the information here, is really cool. I think there's this really neat idea that I've had that I just haven't put into practice yet. But you can use Google Earth to do a site intro, and I think I demoed that last year at one of the meetings, and we just haven't got around to doing it for each site. But it's, you know, when you get on site, normally you can't see all of the stuff that might be a hazard at that site. And so it's a really cool way to have a video without renting a drone and saying like, hey, let me fly you around this site and show you where this hazard is or that hazard isn't, or where the thermal triggers are. It's a cool way to do it.
So
Go ahead. No, go ahead,
was
Craig.
a question earlier that came up. What does the QR code on the mast tell a passerby?
Sure. The QR code goes to the actual weather station page. I think we had that up a little bit earlier. So that'll take you, if you plug that in your phone, that'll take you to what the weather station is putting out data wise. We also put a link on there to the 2 organizations that kind of contributed to putting that up. So that was the San Diego Hang Gliding Paragliding Association and the San Diego River Park Foundation. And we put a link to the whole story about the weather station, which is what Robert was kind of scrolling through earlier, which is on the SDHGPA site. Because that place is out, it's pretty remote, and it's not like there's a lot of vandalism out there, but I mean, I was 18 years old at one point. I know it's fun to kick things over, and it's like, our hope is that someone sees that thing and just thinks before they kick it over and think like, oh, maybe someone went to a lot of work to put this up here. I'll leave this one alone.
And start throwing rocks at it.
Yeah, hanging off of it like a windsock.
Yep.
They'll be pretty exhausted by the time they get there, because that's a long hike.
It's a hard hike. Yeah.
But the reason I was asking about the maintenance is I can't wait to go land up there and service it and then fly away. Oh, that's going to be amazing.
So that's one of the coolest things, is that we, you know, had never had permission to land over there before. And I think for a long time, like, nobody knew who owned that, or it was public space, or SDG&E owned it, or whatever. And guys just kind of maybe once or twice a year were over there landing and then taking off. And then, you know, we realized like, hey, how do we, this was my thought, was how do we make this so that it's okay for us to do it? I like following the rules. I like figuring out what the rules are. If they're really stupid, then I'll bend them or break them. But it just seems like it's easier if we all have the same set of rules and we're kind of living by them together. And since this is private property, it's like, hey, let's reach out to the landowner and see if we can have a reason that they would want us to land there. And this turned out to be a thing where we said, look, we can fly over there in, 15, 20 minutes and cut off an hour and 10 minutes of hard hiking. It's an hour and 30 minutes, hour and 40 minutes if you're hustling. For some, most folks, they'll take kind of 3 hours to just to get out there. And so we can do that in 20 minutes, fly out there, and then, I don't know, another 30 or 40 minute hike up there, but without having to exhaust yourself on a 4 or 5 mile hike in and then fly back. That makes it just that much easier for us to maintain and take care of that station, and also to look at on some of their other sites and stuff that's going on around there.
There is something I wanted to update everybody on. There should be a link in the description for Resurgence PPG. There's some t-shirts available. There's a link in the website for the t-shirts. The proceeds are going to go to sponsoring 20 candidates in 2020.
20 for 20.
20 for 20. So go to resurgenceppg.com, check that out. And if you're interested in supporting our veterans, It is in my opinion, the way to do it. Amazing thing that he's doing. So he's in the chat right now, as a matter of fact. I don't know if he's still, yeah, he is. So go check that out, resurgenceppg.com. And I was trying to pull up the email and I can't find it. But there was a video campaign, and that is on the website, I believe. Just want to send out last 2020 campaign, blah, blah, blah. Yes, I support Resurgence PPG. So anyways, go check that out. Super cool. Excited about what's going to happen. And I know that we'll be able to do that 20 and 20. Oh, also, the Smile program with Amazon, you can choose Resurgence as your where your extra money goes to. I don't know how it works, but they basically take a little portion of whatever you purchased, and then they give that to whatever charity that you want. And because they're 501c3, they're on the list, and so you can choose them when you're buying stuff.
Yes,
especially during
please.
Christmas.
$6 down since last quarter. It's free money. You're spending it already on stuff.
Oh, come on, say it.
All your flying stuff.
Yeah,
That's right.
totally.
That is right.
Cool. Did you see Amazon's buying up old abandoned malls in the Midwest?
Really?
And they're using them as distribution centers because they're the only place where they can buy a ton of land at once, and they're close to highways and lots of people in the cities because that's where they used to put malls.
Interesting.
Pretty rad.
Malls are shutting down because nobody wants to go and get mugged.
You know what I'm thinking is like all these Walmarts, all they got to do is kind of stock Walmart. You know what I mean? Because like it happens, they build a new Walmart, and then like a block from there, they build another Walmart and just move that one Walmart over. All they got to do is just ghost Walmarts. I'm sure they have tons of buildings.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to see how they're just taking over, you know, making themselves more and more useful to more and more people.
Yeah. Amazon's gotten pretty productive out here. They've got one right up the road from me. As a matter of fact, it's huge.
It's crazy.
It's actually the best use of those old rundown malls that it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they were saying like that's the only place they can find something like 800,000 square feet at a time.
Yeah.
That is right next to a big city and super easy access to highways. There's a pretty cool article on it on one of the marketing blogs I see.
Just screams Walmart.
What do you got next on your big adventure list, Nik Hawks?
I think the next thing is just figuring out like how do I fly more, and then how I start dialing in my kit to do overnight stuff. So we've done some kind of pretend stuff with the stuff we've done, but I think there's some cool opportunities just to fly in San Diego and do a bunch of overnights. There's a guy who in the latest, or no, maybe 2 USHPA pilots ago, 2 of the magazines ago, who had done a San Diego Volbiv, and he had just like flown off, I think, of every flying site we had. And then I think he was getting picked up at the end of the day and like spending the night at his house, so he didn't have to muck around, but he'd hike to the next place, hike up it, and then fly off it, go as far as he could.
Wait, what? In San Diego?
In San Diego, yeah. What? I was like, how do I not know this guy?
Yeah, who is it?
I forget his name.
Oh, dang it. But he's not from here.
No, he's here. He's from here. He's like a local pilot. I just haven't met him yet.
What?
Probably really humble. He's probably really humble. He's like, I'm not going to say nothing to nobody, make him guess who I am. You know, they'll talk about that guy, and it's actually me, but I like to hear it.
No, seriously, that's rad.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I think there's so much to do here.
How did you find out about this guy?
He wrote an article about it in the USHPA Pilot like 2 issues ago.
In the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty cool. Greg, I think it was Greg something.
If
he sees it, he'll be like, God, you idiot. My name is whatever, but sorry.
He's watching right now. He's like, oh gosh.
I can't stand this guy.
So into himself. Doesn't know anybody else.
So yeah, I think that's a super cool thing. There's a ton of backcountry to explore. There's a ton of cool launches to explore. And I think one of the neatest things is talking to the old hang glider pilots, because they have this 30 or 40 year history that's basically disappearing and we're losing it. And So one of the things I wanted to do was to do some Google Earth videos of sitting down with our local hang glider pilots and saying, hey, tell me where you guys used to launch from. Where'd you fly
Yes.
to? Where'd you go? Like, let's keep this tribal knowledge so that we don't lose it.
You guys did a little adventure this last season. What was it? Crest?
I didn't do that
You're-
one, no.
Yeah, you did. Chris Otmar and you. And I thought there was some other people involved too.
We're going
But,
out looking for new launches, but there's nothing
yes.
out there. There's nothing developed. There's nothing that you can do yet. It's just like, how do we find places? How do you develop places? And I think this is it's a pretty interesting and challenging piece because there's a lot of wild land out there, especially in San Diego. There's a lot of really cool launch sites. We have so much weather, so many different kind of areas of elevation. It's not like one big flat thing. We're not
Yeah.
all way up high or all way up low. There's all kinds of different terrain features, and it's figuring out who owns the land. Are they cool with it? Are they not cool with it? Is it a government piece of land? Is it something that we could develop into a long-term site? I mean, right now we stand to lose the Palomar site because that's not our land. And so we have to
Right.
negotiate with the tribe and see what we can do with them and how we are respectful and contributing to what they're doing and how they can make it easy for us to fly there. Same thing with Blossom. I mean, we're legally not supposed to be on Blossom. I think there's something that we have been using to say like, hey, I forget what it is. It's like, it's okay to trespass, but you're trespassing, or you're trespassing, but I won't prosecute. It's something along those lines. I'm sure some legal guy will be like, you're an idiot for saying that. But there's so many of us who fly it. At some point, the guy who owns it could just say like, hey, I'm tired of you guys flying there, or I'm going to build my house on where the launch is and where the bailout is. And he can shut it down. And so we need to be constantly looking for new places to fly and then figure out how do we develop those in a way that maintains that site for the next generation, because it's
Preservation.
Yep, preservation. I mean, anyone could run up Cowles Mountain and fly off the top of it, but you'd be an idiot to do that because you'd be hazarding kind of anyone else ever flying off that, and you'd be bringing a ton of negative publicity to paragliding and hang gliding.
That's
Whereas a lot of our
airspace.
sites, Horse and Palomar and the rest of them, people have worked really hard to keep those open for us.
Yeah. You could probably make your house from cows if you launch from cows on a decent day.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I'm not saying for you to do that. It's an airspace. I mean, the airports, there's actually an airport on both sides. You got Montgomery Field and then you got Gillespie on. Yeah,
It'd be a
it's a bad
pretty
idea.
exceptional day. But
You could do it.
Yeah.
So the
Just-
adventure that you're considering, make sure you let me know. I want to be involved.
okay.
All right.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, and been meaning to ask. What has been the most profound change that you've noticed in your flying since we first met till now? What would you say has changed the most dramatic thing that you learned or have added to your flying?
Oh, there's a couple pieces to that. So the dramatic and kind of single day change was I had that crash where I'd cracked my head pretty good and had that concussion that lasted for a couple months. And that just, had me pretty scared of flying for a while. And I knew that wasn't going to be, there was no chance that was going to stop me, but it was also like, hey, it brought home this idea that fear injuries are pretty real. And I'd had that happen before when I crashed out at Palomar. That parachutal stall came down and hit the side of the road and just got really lucky and kind of slid to a stop. And just like brushed that off as like, oh, that was an accident, no big deal. And then the second accident, I think it happened 8 months later. And I started thinking like, maybe I need to be a little bit more careful in the way that I approach flying, and also realize that flying can end my current existence or current understanding or current participation in reality the way that I do. And so just being a little bit more respectful of what it was. I think in the kind of on the fear side or the negative side of the house, that's the most profound thing. On the positive side, I had one flight, and I think all of us have kind of a special flight like this, where it was one of the first times I'd gone over to the cap and came back. I think Cote was there that day. So launched at the bailout, went over and it's like, okay, I'm going to get over there, got over there, came back, chose a really poor line coming back and came in really low into Amen Ridge. So really low into the place where you kind of start to work to scratch up. And that experience of being low and knowing that I had the skill to make it back up, but also knowing that there was a possibility that I was going to, land somewhere that wasn't going to be a fun hike out. That's kind of that flow balance, is that you're right at the edge of your ability, but you're within the ability so that you can maintain it. And I have always thought of that as this time where I could almost feel like the dewdrops of dopamine coming out of the receptors and just going across the synapse and firing. It was just this really ecstatic, almost religious experience where you're in the moment. I mean, that's why a lot of us fly, is to find those moments and to find that time where your ability is right at the level of the conditions that you're in. And it was just, I mean, any decent pilot would have been fine and kind of scratched up and flew out. And that's what I eventually did. But it was just this really profound experience where I had this, ecstatic flying experience, kind of coming out and realizing like, okay, I've progressed from the pilot that I had been before into someone who's capable of doing something that I couldn't have done before. And that was super cool. I always think about that as kind of a seminal moment of flight for me.
What do you have for the new guys that are coming into the sport, or brand new pilots?
I think kite a ton. I still see people not kiting that much. And I know it's not as fun to kite, unless you're in an acro place where acro is kind of part of what you're doing and you're using kiting to develop your acro. I think it's just not as fun to kite for kind of cross country stuff, because you don't know what to do, or you're not good enough to do it, or you're all that combination with your wing not being this really agile wing, makes kiting this thing where it's not quite a chore, but it's also not like this radically fun thing to do, or radically adventurous thing to do. But man, that's the thing that I see on launch kind of over and over. That's just like, oh, there's a bunch of avoidable mistakes. If you can handle your wing and bring it up in any conditions, whether it's light or heavy or cross or whatever, that just makes everything so much safer. And it makes you a much better pilot, and a pilot that's more able to contribute to the sport.
Very good. More kiting. That's something that we did a lot in the beginning, and I'm so grateful.
I love it.
Yeah, I do. I love it. I had this thought, and this is kind of, I know we're coming down to the end of the show, but there was a guy fumbling on launch, and just, it was really bad. And it wasn't me this time. And I was like, man, this is a perfect time to kite. And he made the statement, and somebody else yelled, "You need to do that on some grass." And I agree. I think it's a great idea. But there is a place that I think you should do some kiting, especially if you're generally proficient with kiting, on launch. I think it's a good idea. And, let everybody launch, let everybody get off the hill, and you focus and kite on launch.
Give you a good idea of what an updraft is.
Well, here's why I say this, because there's similarities, but there's also a lot of things that are different with kiting and bringing your wing up on launch. For whatever reason, there's these guys that I don't know. What's your take on that,
Robert? I don't know. Like, I think that's really specific to our site. Like, I think Blossom is really forgiving of that and allows us, because of where it sits in the airband and how calm it is and how kind of predictable it is. And then the thermals coming up, or when we're there, especially late in the day, are not that strong. But man, I've been yelled at other mountain sites by Wendy, by the lady who taught me, and by other guys, by their pilots, saying like, "Hey, dude, don't kite at launch. Like, pull it up and get out of there." Because, I think it's this balance. Like, you find that day where it's the glass off, it's buoyant, there's enough lift in there that you get that feeling of like, hey, this is what a little bit of lift is, but it's still steady and you can still kite. That's a great time to practice. But I think that's a pretty dangerous thing to put out for folks who are for flying the mountains, who are newer, thinking like, oh, I'll just kite at launch because I can save a bunch of time. Like, I think you're way better off kiting in a grassy field until you're bomber at it. And then once you feel like I know for a fact that I can kite at this and practice at this launch, and this is an appropriate launch like Blossom is. And
I guess I should have been more specific. This guy is a veteran pilot.
Yep.
And somebody yelled, "You need to take that to the park." And I was thinking, no, he needs to kite that now. Like this is your time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but I
Yeah.
agree. New pilot, take it to the park, and definitely don't clog up the runway. You know what I got to do here? It is at that 7 o'clock hour. Any other questions from the chat?
Nothing I've seen.
I saw Vito in there was trolling you about the thug cakes, Nick.
Great. Yeah.
Just go on here. I'm just got to do one more thing here.
Cool. Yeah, I think
real-
like weather stations are they're kind of boring unless you're the one installing them, and then they're super fun because it's just a problem to solve. And that's one of the things that brings all of us into flying is we like to have these problems to solve. And it was like it's a cool kind of concrete thing to figure out how to fasten that thing into the ground and what it's going to tell you, and then figuring out what it is telling you, like what that means. And that's all that stuff is pretty interesting.
All right, here we go. The winner of the PPG Smoke monthly winner. It's either the Chase Cam, Strobes, Smoke Machine, or flotation device. It's ppgsmoke.com. Nathan Sequoia, SCIACQUA. Congratulations, Nathan. You are the winner of Chicken Dinner. I'm going to be sending you an email, and appreciate you watching the show and being a part of this. Thank you for all the sponsors. Appreciate Nebraska PPG, the Paramotor Props, and One Up Paragliding. Go check out their websites, Resurgence PPG, Mike Cotter, Fly My PPG, Para Orange Products, PPG Smoke, Tri-State Skywalkers, and I Fly Indiana. Really appreciate you guys and your investment in the show, and you guys are awesome. If you haven't gone to the Patreon for the show and you want to support the show for just the price of about a cup of coffee, you can support the show. And
you got one of your little maggots back there. Just reach back there and backhand that little thing.
He knows after 7, it's all up in the air. The after
just
show.
Start striking.
By the way, if you want to come and hang out for the after show, and you're one of the Patreon supporters, let me know. Let one of the moderators know. We'll send you an invite. And you can come join us. Until next time, Nik Hawks, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Let's do it again soon, and maybe we'll talk about some adventures.
Cool.
How does that sound? Okay. The next show is going to be a good one. I'm going to keep it a secret until we get closer to that date, because I haven't locked down exactly, but I'm pretty sure that this person's going to be on, and we're going to have a great time. You don't want to miss it. Paraglidingtalk.com. Thanks for watching. We're going to go to the after show.